Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Welcome, friends. It's the MovieFilm Podcast. MovieFilm Podcast. Enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about movies. MovieFilm Podcast on the radio.
Joined Army 6 June 69. Accepted Special Forces. Helicopter and language qualified. Expert in light weapons and guerrilla warfare. Sylvester Stallone is back as Rambo.
He's got 36 hours to complete the mission.
No man, no law, no war can stop him. Sylvester Stallone. Rambo. First Blood, Part 2.
Welcome to a movie film commentary track. My name is Zachy Hassan. I'm here with Brian Hall.
Hey, how's it going, Zachy?
It's going well, Brian. I just want to say, for the sake of our listeners, as we record this, it is your birthday.
Yes, it is.
So happy 78.
Right. I would hope maybe I was born in 1978, but I wasn't.
No, just age 78, right? Doesn't it feel like we've aged in dog years in the last couple months?
It does, absolutely, yes.
So I was like, in celebration of Brian's birthday, I can't think of anything nicer than to make you watch Rambo First Blood Part 2.
You know what, though? It's like it feels so right. This is a movie I think I saw for the second time ever for this commentary.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's fun and it's lean and mean. It's just about, I think it's less than 90 minutes without credits, right? So
yep.
This is like a perfect way. I seriously can't think of a better way to spend my morning, to kick off my birthday day, than to like hop in this chair with you and just kick back and riff through Rambo.
Well, I'll tell you, one thing I've learned after doing so many commentary tracks: in order to record a commentary, you have to become a commentary.
Right.
That's the kind of wisdom you get after watching Rambo, written by Sylvester Stallone.
That's right. This
is a fun one. So it celebrates its 40th anniversary this year.
Wow.
And I think we can certainly chime in on the various things that this movie does and doesn't do. It was certainly a phenomenon when it came out, and a phenomenon the likes of which I think it's hard for people to understand.
That's what I'm looking forward to kind of digging into, because I have, growing up in the 80s, Rambo was Rambo, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was iconic, and it's interesting how much when you walk into a movie theater and you see the certain characters that they have on the walls to be like movies, Indiana Jones and Batman and Captain America. 20 plus years ago, you would have seen Rambo right alongside those characters, but I feel like you see it less and less. So
that's very true.
Looking forward to getting into that.
Well, let's do it. So we are watching the one and only cut of Rambo First Blood Part 2, directed by George P. Cosmatos, ?
Right. I'm looking forward to talking about that too.
And starring Sylvester Stallone. So if you want to watch along with us, you're welcome to cue it up. Otherwise, we'll try to keep the conversation interesting enough to keep you engaged with whatever it is you happen to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ready on my end. How about you, Brian?
I'm ready.
All right. So we will do the usual thing. We will hit play on 3. So 1, 2, 3, play. And 1, 2, 3, play. There's the horsey.
The horsey, TriStar. This makes me think of Short Circuit 2, so immediately my heart is warmed.
So this was released by TriStar. The Rambo films were independently financed, and then they were distributed by various organizations, across the world.
And can you speak to the music that plays over that logo? Because that's the music I hear over at the beginning of Terminator 2.
Yeah, so that's
right?
the
Over
Carolco music.
yeah,
So-
exactly.
Right. So I think at this point the Carolco didn't exist, but I think that music was over whatever distributor happened to release it across the world, you know?
I see.
Yeah, but I identify it with Rambo,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
you know. That's
Um,
me. So you saw this for not very many times. That's very interesting because like definitely for me as I was rewatching this to get ready for this track, I was like I don't even need to rewatch this.
Yeah, yeah, I have a few of those sometimes,
Yeah.
but no, this, First Blood I'd seen a couple times throughout my
Mhm.
life, and I like First Blood a lot. And then I want to say a couple years ago, just a couple, it occurred to me that I'd never seen 2 and 3.
Wow.
And it did feel like, oh wow, what a little gift. I get to watch Rambo 2. I mean, it is so iconic, and
Yeah.
to be able to see it for the first time, and it's really interesting. It's very different. Right?
It is. It's almost like a repudiation of the first movie. Like I try to contextualize how much of a left turn this is from what First Blood is doing and what it says about the character of Rambo.
Mm-hmm.
Because it feels like this one kind of it got the high level, like, oh, okay, he's a Vietnam vet, and he's in jail. And they just
Sure.
it's almost like it was written by folks who hadn't seen the first movie.
Right.
Which is ironic because Sylvester Stallone wrote the version of the movie that we saw, and I'm assuming he was at least aware of the movie he starred in 3 years earlier.
Yeah, well, I have like so many thoughts. Like one, it's right off the bat, it reminds me a little bit of Die Hard 3, what we were talking about, in that in Die Hard 1, you're seeing a character who's very specific in an unusual situation for that person.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Yeah.
Die Hard 3, we get to see him in his turf. We get to see him actually not confined in a building, but he's now a New York City cop on the New York City streets doing his thing.
Yeah.
And likewise, I can see a writer pitching a sequel for Rambo. It's like, well, we saw a guy who was a fish out of water in this town and not fitting in and no one wanting him there. Now let's see him where he is himself.
That's right.
For better or worse, frankly, for him, going back to hell, so to speak, but where he is allowed to just sort of be unleashed and be full Rambo. And that's what this is, right?
Very much so. And I mean, the fact, well, right here, it's the mission statement of the movie. Sir, do we get to win this time?
Mm-hmm,
this time it's up to you. Right. And I mean, hey, say what you will. It spoke to audiences,
Mm-hmm.
worth recognizing. I mean, First Blood was a substantial hit. It cost $15 million and it made $160 million worldwide. So
I want to say that was US. I think worldwide it was 300.
That First Blood?
Oh, First Blood. I'm so sorry. Two. I'm sorry.
First
I'm looking at
Blood
the
2,
stats for this one. Yeah.
Yeah, First Blood 2, it cost only $10 million more than First Blood, and it made almost double what First Blood made.
Yes.
Right. So I mean, the calculate, like we can talk about it in terms of being cynical and everything else, and it is, but it was unquestionably a crowd pleaser. I mean, that's the thing about this movie. I mean, I'll put it on Front Street. I think this movie is dumb as a stump.
Dude, I literally was, and I wasn't going to say this, but when I was watching it, I was like, this movie has rocks in its head.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's at times objectively stupid, but I'll be honest, I have a blast watching it.
It is the perfect version of what it's doing. You know what I'm saying?
Really? No, I agree.
Actually, somewhere here, I wrote down a quote that Gene Siskel had. He gave it 3 out of 4 stars and called it very good at what it does, but what it does isn't always that good. I was like, yeah.
Well, David Morrell, who we just saw his credit, he of course wrote the novel First Blood. He wrote the novelizations of Rambo 2 and 3.
Oh, interesting.
And I used to have the paperback of his novelization for this, and I don't have it anymore. I wish I did. I never read it, but I would love to, because I would love to delve into Morrell's like state of mind as he had to sort of somehow reconcile his original book with what this is. You know?
Yes, I mean he created this character, and to try to wrap his head around this adventure his character is going through, I'd be really curious how he interprets that.
Yeah. Here's Martin Kove
Yeah.
cementing his rep as 80s douchebag of note.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Vietnam vet in Karate Kid also.
That's
who
right,
opens
yeah.
up a dojo. It's weird to hear him speak even more. Like, I'm just so used to the few lines I've ever heard him speak in the Karate Kid films. And so hear him talking and jesting and smiling, I'm like, what?
That's hilarious.
It's strange to me.
Charles Napier, he's another one as Murdoch. Like, just I don't know if it's solely because of this movie, but like I just feel like he's another, like, just bureaucratic douchebag.
Oh, he's so good in this, though, right? I mean, could you cast
You
a
just
better
hate him.
guy to play this person? He's so perfect.
That's the interesting thing is that, so first of all, the film, a sequel was a foregone conclusion once First Blood did as well as it did. And,
Sure.
And in its earliest stages, the first draft of the sequel was written by none other than James Cameron.
Yeah.
This was I think during the downtime on he was getting ready to write. He was getting ready to make The Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
And he was writing Aliens and First Blood 2 at the same time.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but legend has it he went in to pitch the sequel to Rambo, and he had a whiteboard. And all he did was he wrote the word Rambo, and then he added an S and turned it into a $sign.
Rambos.
And everyone was like, Rambos? We don't understand. And he's like, you know what? I'll save that for another pitch.
Pretend you didn't see that.
Don't tell anyone at Fox.
Yeah, his draft was called First Blood to the Mission. First Blood, Roman numeral, not First Blood to the Mission.
You're right. Okay.
And that started with Rambo in a mental health facility instead of a rock quarry.
Interesting, right? Like recycled that in Terminator 2.
Yeah, right. Definitely using every piece of the buffalo, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I think the idea was the same. And I would say what else can you do after First Blood? Is, I guess, pretty much what else can you do with Rambo but send him back to Vietnam?
Yep.
So it was that Cameron has said that he took care of the violence and Stallone took care of the politics.
Yeah, that's right. Like he seems to claim all of the action and the set pieces and maybe the spine in a way. But yeah, I guess Stallone colored in and everything else. But I guess there was more. Like there was a humorous sidekick.
Yeah, I think they were talking about like John Travolta or somebody.
Yes, like a wisecracking sidekick who tags along with Rambo on the mission, but Stallone didn't want the other guy getting all the cool lines and kind of sharing space. I guess the POWs had more personalities also.
Which I wish they had kept that, certainly.
Me too. I guess Cameron has a quote where he says, with what they ended up with the POWs not really having personalities, he says, they might as well have gotten to the jungle to pick up a 6-pack of beer. So
I mean, I hate to say it. Yeah, no, I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, obviously,
no.
There's enough of what Cameron did that he retained a screenplay credit. Although, of note, the story is by Kevin Jarre, who would go on to, he came up with he wrote Tombstone, and he was going to direct Tombstone.
And then I did not. Yes, right. And
then directed by George P. Cosmatos.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's the progression. Is Jarre comes up with the idea of sending Rambo back to Vietnam. Cameron runs with it. I think Cameron got the gig on the back of a recommendation from David Giler via the Alien, the Alien connection, because David Giler had written or done some polishes on First Blood. So just a incestuous bunch of, it's all about who you know, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
But regardless, I think the film it's fascinating because it arrived at probably Stallone's like absolute peak. Right?
Yes, right.
I mean, this is the same year that Rocky IV came out, right?
Yeah, crazy.
And see, Rocky 4, it's another movie that's dumb as a stump, but goddamn if I don't love it, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So it's during Stallone's like patriotism, jingoism phase,
Sure, sure.
I guess,
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me is Cameron says Stallone brought in the politics. And when I look at this movie, I'm like, well, it feels fairly apolitical. Like, I don't think it's a commercial for either political party,
Actually, I thought the same thing. So I was a little surprised reading that take
Yeah.
over and over when I was researching this.
Like, I think that the nuance has been flattened out, where
Yeah.
there's kind of this idea that, well, if America would just get out of the way of our fighting man, then God damn it, we'd win some wars, kind of thing, which I think
Sure.
is maybe a little simplified,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think the relationship between Trotman and Rambo, which I found fascinating in First Blood, because Trotman is kind of a gray character in the earlier film, and partly it's how Krenna sort of plays him close to the chest, and it's like, look, Trotman turned him into this guy, and we have to reckon with whether that's a good thing or not. And that, again, that's all been sort of just ironed out, and it's just more of a father-son dynamic.
Yep.
And that's fine, because I think Richard Crenna is really good in this.
Oh yeah, he strikes the perfect tone for that character.
Yeah, so like I'm in with all of that, but I'm like, it's just that's what I mean. Like, it's like somebody, it's made by somebody who kind of got the high level of First Blood without really watching it,
Yeah, but it feel sort of like Alien versus Aliens, in that it's like, all right, that was the sort of 70s version that was a little more story nuanced and kind of tragic, but it's like, well, but what if it was like an action film?
Yeah,
like more an out and out action film.
I don't think that's an entirely inaccurate comparison. I think Aliens was what, a year after this, right? So it speaks to certainly what was sort of in the water in terms of 1980s movies, where we wanted the ultra violent crowd pleasers,
right?
And Aliens is very much that. I mean, I think Aliens is aesthetically and stylistically obviously a much better movie than this, but you don't watch that movie to be scared. You watch it to just see Marines unloading firepower on on gooks. I mean, bugs.
Right.
It's that same, like, America working through
interesting
all of its Vietnam angst. Right? I mean, seriously.
I guess I never thought about it that way. Maybe my age or something, but
like when we were growing up, Vietnam was just kind of part of the cultural fabric, right? It was laced into all of our pop culture,
right?
And it's weird to realize now. I mean, we're talking like it's something that's completely alien to people's experience today.
Yeah, I mean, I recalled. I don't know if George Lucas said this overtly, but like the whole Ewok taking back, their planet against oppressive forces was sort of like a Vietnam illusion. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I just never thought about this as a kid.
Sure.
I just sort of took it at face value, but yeah.
And that's really interesting because by virtue of that metaphor that Lucas put out, he's clearly equating the United States with the Empire.
Yeah.
For people who say Star Wars was never political,
Right. By the way, the moment we were Troutman seeing Rambo off, and Rambo is like, I love, by the way, Rambo, like, he's very, he doesn't speak very much.
That's right.
And he just sort of looks around, very stoic. And I love watching him do that. Like, enter that room that's filled with machines. They're like, here, this is how we win wars. This is how it is now, where he's a man who could do everything with his bare hands, but looking at all this machinery and computers and crap. And he just observes.
Yeah.
I love that. But then when he's being escorted to the plane, and he in confidence, tells Troutman, like, I realize that this guy's a liar. And he's like, you're the only one I trust. I'm like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that's sort of fascinating, right? As a way of situating Murdoch as just a weasel.
Just before I forget, I want to, we have this, I acknowledge what's happening on screen here, but Rambo about to jump out of the plane, but he hits a snag.
Well, before we even get that, the guy who's helping him out, he takes out his gum and sticks it on the ceiling, and it always grosses me out.
Yeah, we were talking about that with Adrian Brody in the Oscars this year. Like gum play. When he sticks gum under a desk, screw you. Like anyone who like throws gum at a person, screw you. You know what I mean? Like that should be like a new sort of shorthand. You know, like if you see someone in a movie like littering, you're like, oh, I hate that guy. Like anyone who's like messing around with gum.
Hey, a question about Rambo being hung up at the plane here. You think this sequence could have gone a little bit longer?
Yes, I was feeling that too. Yeah.
I'm like, we got a mini series here. Let's just get to it.
That is hilarious. Okay, so because I haven't seen this as many times. Wait, by the way, that knife's amazing.
Iconic.
I almost, my brother got married a year ago, and I almost as a wedding present got him that knife. Mostly because I thought it would be really funny for him to open that up. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? You know, it's like, yeah, well, you open it up and you can put like matches inside.
By the way, as we talk, he's still hanging on the side of that plane. Just
yes.
If you're keeping track.
Well,
he should have brain damage. I'm just saying.
But I thought, you know, the reason you'd put a hitch in here is like, well, then he's not being dropped exactly where he was supposed to be. But that doesn't really come up as an issue, right? Because he meets his contact pretty quickly.
I think it was to separate him from all the gadgets and things.
Because he has to drop all his crap. Yeah. Which makes, that's good. It just his knife and his bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, that's so funny. But no, I wanted to comment real quick on what you were saying about the tone of this, where in the 80s, everyone wanted to see that big, dumb, fun, blow 'em up action film. So I had this experience a little while back with my brother-in-law showing him The Rock.
Okay.
And he,
right. Okay. Yeah.
He didn't connect with it. He's like, this is too silly.
Wow.
Right. And it made me think, oh, interesting, because if my dad in 1985 showed me a John Wayne movie, I might have found it a little silly.
That's
right.
Hilarious.
And if you would show this movie to a kid now, you better believe they'd find it silly. Right. And then like even The Rock now has progressed, because to me, The Rock is almost commenting on how like we are having a fun time. We're doing one-liners. We're winking a little bit while we're still having a huge bombastic adventure that is enjoyable. Yeah. So it's just kind of weird, like circle of life sort of thing, right? Where these action movies speak to their times and they're huge hit in their times, but just give it a little bit of time and things that we want. The Dark Knight. We want Batman to actually make sense in the real world. And we might not be able to have as fun a time with a Tim Burton Batman, because it's like, well, this is kind of like silly, right? You know?
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? And so Rambo, I think, is something you could point at, where at the moment this was a huge blockbuster, but now we might look at it and be like, wow, this is like sillier than I thought, you know. And even Stallone himself, he was on a talk show several years back and he said this was his least favorite because he thinks it feels like a cartoon.
That's really interesting.
But at the time, no one cared. You know, this is what everyone wanted.
And clearly he didn't care, because he was the brains behind the operation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think maybe to some extent he made that comment reckoning with what sprang up in its wake, right?
Sure.
Not just sort of the Rambo industrial complex, but like all the ripoffs and everything else, you know?
Right. It is funny though, because I've never seen Cobra, but when you think of some of those later 80s action films and the one-liners and the whatever, those just do feel inherently sillier, or, you know, for lack of a better word, dumber. But like this one feels kind of silly, and you can kind of look at it that way through the 2025 lens, but it is super fun to watch.
Yeah.
Right? It does feel like of a higher caliber of this thing to me.
I know, I agree. Well, you know, I think part of the reason for that, and this was the thought I had as I was rewatching, I'm like, you know, the Jerry Goldsmith score is like hoisting this movie on its shoulders, you know.
That's a great point. Yep.
That the score does so much of the work.
Yeah,
I
making
mean,
it feel what's happening is important.
yeah, man, and it's legitimately one of his absolute best scores.
Right.
Um, this character of Ko Bao, I go back and forth. I'm like, is this racist? Like,
You know, I don't know that I should even go speak on this too much, but like because I don't know this actress,
yeah,
but it strikes me as dialogue that a white person wrote,
absolutely,
trying to sound like what they think a Vietnamese person would talk like.
absolutely. Like it's completely because she's American, Julia Nixon, and she
Okay.
right, and she's I think she gets it's a strong, compelling character, right? I mean, she's independent, she's beautiful, all of that is that's the good side of the ledger, right?
Totally.
On the other hand, she speaks this pidgin English that, like you
Yeah.
said, she's like Rambo. I go America,
Yes, exactly.
I don't know.
And it feels, and even just her delivery of it, maybe because she is American, it just feels like, I don't know if this is it.
I'm like, I don't know, is it racist? Maybe.
Right. But I do like her a lot. And I do wonder if she's a Cameron invention. I mean, I'm just, with his history of strong female protagonists.
Yeah. Very, very possible.
And she is, I mean, it's a little thin and silly, but I do like her as a concept.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I wish there was a little bit more runway leading up to her suddenly becoming a romantic interest, right? That feels like a plot contrivance, right?
But I like it. But I agree. I wish it was a little more nuanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see Rambo have a connection with someone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. By the way, I just have to point it out. I mean, this movie is shot well, but that one shot of the pirate thumbing through the money, like partially obscuring Rambo's face as he watches him, I was like, ooh. That stood out to me both times.
Yeah, so George P. Cosmatos, who directed this, famously vis-a-vis Tombstone, he was essentially the ghost director. Or rather, he was the director of record while Kurt Russell was the ghost director. And I think Rambo was a similar situation. Like I think Kurt Russell was recommended Cosmatos by Stallone, and I think it was recommended in the sense of like just he'll do what you tell him to do.
Right, and apparently he was a European director, right? And so
That's right.
Stallone's son watched one of his movies, Cosmatos movies,
Mm-hmm.
brought him to Stallone's attention. He directs Rambo 2, then he does Cobra, I think, right?
He did Cobra the following year, yeah.
Yeah, and then like you said, then you have Stallone recommending him to Russell, and kind of an interesting career. He didn't have a ton of movies when I looked at his IMDb.
Yeah, nothing particularly memorable other than the ones we've mentioned.
Yeah.
And I think, maybe that comes from what we're talking about, where it was like, well, he'll do what what you tell him to do kind of thing,
Yeah. I mean, it's worth rattling off because I guess with the American films, you have Rambo 2, Cobra, Leviathan, Tombstone, then something called Shadow Conspiracy, and that's it.
Yeah. Shadow Conspiracy, that had Charlie Sheen.
Oh.
And then Leviathan, actually, I like. That's Peter Weller's in that.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that. That's a total VHS video case.
Yep.
That I remember as a kid, but I've never seen the film.
Yeah, if I recall, that one was kind of around the same time as The Abyss.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of trying to tap into some of that same energy.
Yeah. Wasn't there something called The Deep also around that?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. But okay, so something else we can talk about, Rambo being just an absolute 80s icon. And I'm sure we touched on this in First Blood, but then you have this hard R-rated movie becomes this enormous worldwide hit. And so then they're like, well, how can we make more money off of this? It's like, well, let's sell it to children. Right?
That's right.
And so, I mean, we can get into the cartoon, but even besides that, there was a Rambo play kit that I remember having as a kid that came with a rubber version of his enormous knife. And it had the little gem necklace thing and the headband. And So I knew that. I mean, if I were to be Rambo for Halloween, I would know how to dress up as him. But until I watched this movie, I didn't realize the meaning behind those things. And I actually found it like, that's why I'm saying I wish the romance had been a little bit more nuanced, because I actually find it really touching that the headband is a portion of her dress, and he takes the necklace from her, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. He's carrying her with her. I had no idea what I was wearing when I was 8 and running around the backyard.
You were honoring Ko Bao also, as it turns out.
Yes.
And her Buddhist beliefs,
Yeah,
this moment right here, this scene rather, where he's talking about, when I came back from the war and there was a different war against people like me. That's one thing that always, like, I'm like, this just feels like a very pervasive myth that has lived on about like how Vietnam vets were treated.
I mean, I know, all I know is what I was told. I really don't know what that.
Yeah, I mean, when you dig into it, it's like, do I believe that there were, some folks protesting at airports? Yeah, probably. I don't doubt that. But do I think there was this sort of overwhelming cultural like rejection of soldiers certain in Vietnam? The record doesn't point to that. But when you think about it, it was a powerful enough myth that it was used. Think about it. It was used at the time, is in the 70s, as a way for the Nixon administration to deflect blame. Oh, it's not us. It's the hippies that are protesting. They're the reason we lost the war. If people didn't support the troops enough, right?
Right.
And then I see what you're saying. Yeah. And then flash forward 20 years to the post 9/11. That was the thing. If you say something against the war, you're not supporting the troops.
Right.
So these things are sort of cyclical,
Right.
But my sense is that was not a pervasive thing. Again, I don't doubt that there were pissed off hippies, but just overall, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't track with what we generally know,
It is sad. Well, I mean, like I say, I mean, I don't know. I know most of this through media, and I was actually thinking about, protests and hippies and things like that. And literally one of the first things that comes to mind is like, at the mall on, in Washington, a veteran spoke there. His name was Forrest Gump. And,
Forrest Gump.
What he said really moved everybody. I didn't get to hear it personally.
About Viet effing Nam.
Yeah. Yeah. His microphone was cut off, but apparently it was very brilliant.
It was very moving.
But yeah, it's just struck me as like, wow, I really do know a lot of history simply through media.
You and me both,
Yeah.
But I mean, that's when you think about it. I mean, media shapes our narratives.
It does. Absolutely.
And so, that was so pervasive because of films and everything else. Like, Vietnam veterans were just, treated with disgrace. And that's not true. I mean, they dealt all the stuff they dealt with. Like, they wouldn't have been blamed for it. You know what I mean? Of what happened in Vietnam. They were people who were drafted. Like, why would they,
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I
mean, it just became this pervasive thing. I think that's sort of interesting. And I think a Rambo, the popularity, like you're talking about, it was sort of, it coincided with the rise of the Reagan era. And, this sort of, America is back kind of posturing, movie star posturing. I mean, God knows Reagan really ran with Rambo as an identifier for himself,
Yeah. I read about that.
He's like a popular movie out there, we get to win this time.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating. Hey, look at all the ways he employs this knife. Like, I think I
know.
I would never use it, but it's just kind of cool. Wait, by the way, I kind of missed that line earlier. I was thinking about how iconic it is, his bow and arrow, but I missed the line there where he says, no sound. It's like, oh, of course.
And then it's like the noisiest bow and arrow I've ever seen. It's like, it sounds like laser beams,
I did think about that. Yeah, the sound design of the arrows are they may as well be bullets. But I was like, I mean, this is me and my silly mind. But I was looking at those arrows. I was like, damn, those look expensive. Like I'd probably try to get all those arrows back.
Right.
Those are like some high end arrows. And also, I didn't Google it, but I mean, explosive arrows. Is that a thing?
That is a good question. I just assumed it was a thing.
Yeah.
But now that you ask, I'm questioning everything I've ever known about everything.
It's funny too. The prostitute that shows up. Of course, that pays off later, right? Because that's her name, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she shows up later pretending to be a prostitute. And I thought, oh, that was a good little setup. I just thought it was a little business and detail at the beginning. I was like, oh, but they were seeding. It's pretty good.
Yep. They always use the prostitute to set up plot points. That's
Exactly.
That's a lesson I learned early on from this movie.
That's right.
When I was 6 years old and I watched it, I was like, okay. So the hooker was setting up later developments.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you're the storyteller you are today.
That is crazy. I saw this movie for the first time. I was thinking about this. My daughter just turned 8 yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 7 going on 8 when I watched Rambo for the first time. This film.
Right.
And I'm like, man, I don't know how I feel about that. You know?
Right. But you've talked about that. I mean, the 80s were kind of a funny era where, I mean, their movies were, I think they're more violent than they are now, or at least in their excess, right? Something like RoboCop. But This is the stuff we were watching at sleepovers.
Certainly this film, it is obviously insanely violent. Like, I'm not going to say it isn't, but it's also weirdly antiseptically violent.
Yeah, I kind of found that too. Right? Yeah, strangely. I mean, it's a lot of people getting shot and just kind of and like falling over.
Yeah, one guy exploding like a helium-filled balloon, but other than that, there's no geysers of blood,
Yeah, like RoboCop.
Yeah, I've said, I mean, RoboCop, which I saw, just a few months after seeing this RoboCop, I lost my innocence watching that movie.
Right. I kind of think me too. I've said that story when I saw that boardroom executive get just completely annihilated in that room. I was like, that's like the first time I'd ever seen the human body do that. And as a kid, I was like, that can happen? Like,
how much blood is inside us?
Yeah, exactly. Like, my dad wears a suit to the office, and now I'm seeing like a guy in a suit just get like ripped to shreds in an office setting. I was like, just like kind of exploded my tiny little brain. Do you know, by the way, did you see this is the only Rambo movie to be nominated for an Oscar?
Yeah, I think it was like sound effects editing or something like that.
Yeah, sound
right?
editing, yeah.
Yeah, I think Back to the Future beat it, right?
Oh, did it?
I believe so. That's crazy. This is the same year as Back to the Future.
I thought about that. Like, if you were in the theater, this is, what would have been next door. I think about that a lot. Like, what's side by side? If you walked out, went into another movie, what was in the ether at the same time?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's sort of the thing about 80s cinema, and I think, we have so much nostalgia for it, and it's so reflective of its era. And I think that's sort of the problem we're seeing now is like there aren't enough new things, so there's a lot of these resurrections of 1980s properties. Right? And so that would be like in the 80s you're watching like the umpteenth version of something that started in the 40s.
Wow, that is strange.
Right? It's like, everything has its season. I think studios need to recognize that. I mean, I've said before, the Rambo flick that came out 6 years ago now, Last Blood, I actively hated it.
Now, why is that? What? Because you look at something like Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
And it's got the same distance. And I know we were a little skeptical, but then they just found a way to make it still feel like Top Gun, but it completely worked for audiences today also. So what didn't work with the latest Rambo film?
I think partly I thought that the previous film, the 2008 Rambo movie, came to a good ending. And certainly my thought was like, I don't think you need to go past that ending.
Right.
And then what they came up with was, you have this the sex trafficking story involving a girl who lives on Rambo's farm, and he sort of starts like a Home Alone style war with the cartel, and.
Sure.
And I was like, number one, it doesn't feel like a Rambo movie. Like I said this before, he could be John Smith instead of John Rambo, and it wouldn't alter the story.
Mm.
And it was just so like mean spirited. Like, and again, like, I'm talking about Rambo. What am I saying? I realize that, but like, it was just nasty.
Mm.
It didn't feel like a good place to leave the character, in my opinion.
So sort of reveling in him murdering.
I think so. I think that the thesis of the movie seems to be that once you are as far gone as Rambo is in terms of the things that he's had to do throughout his life, like there's no coming back from that. That's who you are.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene where one of these cartel guys is in his house and he shoots him with an arrow, and then he comes up to him and he like pulls his heart out. And I'm like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, because I would say this movie wants us to enjoy him mowing people down, and it feels slightly like righteous vengeance because of these captives.
So. Yeah,
but it's like right up to that moment where it's like I can enjoy this and maybe feel guilty about it later, but I'm enjoying it in the moment.
That's right.
But yeah, that sounds like it's licking its lips as it does it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think for me, I like the character. So I liked the idea that he leaves the war behind and then he just goes home and that's it,
Right.
There was something nice about that. It's, given where I come from, which is I love First Blood. I think I've said before, right? Like the very first scene of First Blood, you see him walk up the trail, and then and the first time we see him, he's smiling.
Mm.
And I'm like, what an odd thing seeing John Rambo smile, because it's like he never smiles in these movies,
Right.
And it's the idea of like, he should be able to reclaim his humanity,
Yeah.
I think the problem with the Last Blood is, forget First Blood, I think it's too far removed from even the characterization that we see here,
Yeah, sure.
Like this movie exists in kind of a cartoon reality.
Yes.
And as you said, we can get into, well, it's dehumanizing how it portrays Vietnamese people, whatever. I mean, that is a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the final film, given all the hoopla about what's said about Mexico and everything else, I'm like, this is just, it's like a propaganda movie for everything people have been saying.
Sure.
That's unfortunate,
Yeah.
And I think Stallone's storytelling sensibilities are generally pretty smart.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has a good sense of what audiences want, and I think his thinking on the first film, which was, we shouldn't kill off John Rambo. I mean, obviously just from a franchise perspective, that was smart, but I think from a storytelling perspective, he recognized that that's not something audiences would be okay with.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
He generally has a good read, but when it comes to the last film, just the last point on that, David Morrell, who created the character, he absolutely loathed it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not off on it in the wilderness on this one,
First Blood or all of them?
He hated Last Blood.
Oh, Last Blood. Oh, yeah, sure.
I think he said the same thing. It could have been John Smith and it wouldn't have mattered. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, now we have we think they're getting away. Well, he got the one POW who was strung up.
That's right.
And which, by the way, okay, I mean, let's get into this. The first time I think I ever saw any parody or imagery from this movie was UHF. And so I was like, oh, the sort of the POW who he's having to kind of carry through the jungle. It's Michael Richards.
Yep.
And Weird Al's carrying him through the jungle, and UHF. I was like, oh, that actually is a character in this movie. The Michael Richards. But anyway, yeah. So they get back to their pirate boat. The pirates have sold them out. Now the Vietnamese soldiers are after him, and Rambo is not having it.
He's got something to say about all this.
He's a one-man wrecking crew you don't want to mess with.
See, that's the other thing. This movie really, I mean, it turns him into a superhero.
Yes.
I mean, that's the we're talking about 80s movies. These characters, these actors and slash characters were the equivalent of our cinematic superheroes that we have today.
Yeah, for sure.
So, nothing can stop Rambo, and that's fine. But again, if you've seen the first movie, it's a pretty wild swing,
Yeah. I kind of missed it, but there was some line that Ko said right there where it's like he blew up the ship and he made it, and she's like, Rambo, he made it.
Yep.
And I was like, what? That feels like that thing they do now for Netflix movies because they assume you're folding laundry while you're watching, and they're like, oh, I'll just walk to the mailbox, open the mailbox, take the letter out, and oh, it's a letter from my brother, like
By the way, this movie was shot in Mexico.
Yeah, I saw that. And sometimes days were 120 degrees. That sounds miserable.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
A lot of day for night shooting, you can tell.
Yeah, earlier. Yeah, when he was skulking through the camp or whatever.
Yeah. But they did a nice job, with the rice patties and everything. They did a nice job of evoking
I gotta
Asia,
say, yeah, for sure. I think it does look pretty good. It's beautiful.
It's great. Yeah. This whole sequence leading up to his betrayal. I mean, you talk about righteous vengeance, and it's sort of like perfect audience manipulation. You create a scenario where you are so effing mad at Martin Cove and Charles Napier and all. You're like, oh man, you just want to see them get their uppance,
Yep.
Because it's so, when you take a step backward, it's so absurd.
Right. Why wouldn't they? Yeah.
Right. They are inside of him, and that, you know what I mean? Like, that's just, come on.
No, but you're so right. Yeah. It's perfect to make us completely hate those people. And now we want Rambo to rescue everybody and then go settle the score, at home.
Now we're like, okay, now I want you to win this time.
Right.
Now it's up to you. That's what
and I love too. I mean, getting ahead of it, but when he's being tortured, and then he finally goes on the radio, and his message isn't, like, screw these people, we're getting out of here. It's like, I'm coming for you.
I mean, I didn't see this in the theater, but you can imagine that was like an applause moment, right?
Totally. So apparently, I mean, sadly, it sounds like someone died.
Yeah, I read that.
Special effects technician. What's his name? Clifford P. Winger Jr. He was. I guess it's not this moment, but there was an explosion
near the waterfall, I think.
Yeah, and
it took a fall.
Footing. Yeah. So the
Scary.
film's dedicated to him. But I was thinking about it during the scene because this looks very dangerous. I mean, now say what you will about CGI. When it's employed well, you don't notice it. So it's like you can pull off explosions closer to your actors and make it really thrilling. But watching them run through this landscape and these actual explosions going off right at their heels, I was like, man, that looks dangerous.
Yeah, that not easy to pull off.
Yeah, compelling to watch. But I remember watching the movie Used Cars.
Okay.
The Robert Zemeckis movie, and I was listening to the commentary. And right. And there's a point where this guy is like stumbling down the road and a car almost hits him and swerves right at the last second, not hitting him. And it's played for comedy. And Zemeckis and Gale are watching it, and they're like, "What were we thinking? Like, seriously? We could have killed that guy." I think they even say, like, "I can't look at this." And you just think about, like, back in the go 80s, you're just like, hey man, we got to get something that are going to thrill audiences. It's like, if we accidentally hurt somebody, well, let's hope we don't.
Them's the breaks.
Yeah. I do like seeing Troutman here, I was hoping Rambo didn't see him in the window, kind of.
Right.
Like, I didn't want him to feel that he was betrayed by Troutman. And I don't know that he ever really does, but it's cool seeing Troutman fight.
He sees Erickson.
Yeah.
But see that right there, you can imagine like audiences going, no,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I mean, they've got the eye contact, him and Cove like eye contact and flying away. And then that shot, yeah, right there, Rambo, like just sneering, like,
That's it.
And this is a great shot right here, seeing all the troops inching forward, like, well, here we go.
Yep.
Surrounded.
And Kobau is like, all right, better go get my hooker gear. Get that out of storage.
Get my kimono.
So here's the thing about this whole it is ridiculous. The idea like, oh, he was supposed to go there and not see prisoners. Okay, but you don't account for the possibility that he might see prisoners.
Right.
Like it's this fascinating thing. Like because again, when we talk about the politics of the movie, though, I don't think the movie is sophisticated enough to really know what its politics are.
Right.
But it's definitely the idea is like the bureaucracy. It's the pencil pushers who are getting in the way. So really, that flows from this 80s aesthetic, right? A year prior, we had Ghostbusters, where if it wasn't for those EPA pencil necks,
right,
right, very very similar energy,
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe that's kind of, I think we've talked about this a little bit, where my distrust of government comes from. I mean, it's like movies like this, and then The Simpsons, kind of a question everything through a comedic lens. And I kind of am thankful for it. Like I don't feel like every single thing out there is evil enough to get me, but I do at least have a stance of like, well, let me question this a little
verify.
bit.
Yeah.
Exactly. Verify. And I think that's a healthy perspective, frankly.
I agree.
But speaking of Ghostbusters, by the way, I was fascinated by the success of this movie. And it said, I guess when it was released on VHS in 1986, it sold a record 425,000 units on opening day.
Amazing.
Beating the record previously held by Ghostbusters at 410,000. Wow. So, I mean, that's again, I mean, like people still buy Ghostbusters on, DVD or, digital and dress up like Ghostbusters and stuff. And I just find it fascinating that was huge in that moment, obviously, but Rambo is bigger. It's just interesting how it had its moment.
It had its moment, right? And I think that's what's so interesting because what you saw with the Rambo franchise in its initial run, so that trilogy, is First Blood was a pretty decent size hit. First Blood Part 2 was a staggering hit. And then Rambo 3, nobody watched.
Really?
So like it was like there was this very short window.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I mean I find that kind of fascinating,
Yeah. If this one did so well, why didn't people show up for the next one?
Because Rambo 3, that came out 3 years after this, right?
Okay, not that long.
And it was, but think about it. So First Blood 2 has a budget of $25 million.
Yeah.
Rambo 3 is around $60 million. So at the time, the most expensive movie ever made.
Wow. But
it made $189 million.
Okay.
So, quite a big drop from the previous film.
Yeah.
And having spent a lot more, because it was like the window had closed,
Yeah.
And I think that is itself really interesting.
I guess just right place, right time. This one.
Yeah, I think by the time Rambo 3 came out, the toys were done. They had all been remaindered, and the cartoon was over, and kids had moved on to Ninja Turtles or whatever. And
yeah.
I mean, it's weird that this was thought of as a kids franchise, and yet
that is wild, absolutely wild. As we watch him in like a piss shit river here with leeches,
with maggots all over him,
and he's about to be like tortured and against a mattress frame. Like it's
a family franchise,
exploding soldiers. Excuse me. How do you pronounce the name of the character? I don't remember. From the First Blood, Tessel. Sheriff Tessel?
Oh, Teasel.
Teasel. I was looking up, just curious about people's opinions on this movie. I was on Reddit, and someone named Mr. Rickster
Okay.
But if Sheriff Teasel had just let Rambo get a sandwich, the Russians would still be in Afghanistan.
That's hilarious.
Something to think about.
There you go. That's so funny.
But just real quick, I'll just dump all this here while we're talking about it. But first film to appear in 2,000 plus U.S. theaters, which now we have movies out in 4,000 plus theaters, but that's pretty big. And this was the third film in history to gross over 20 million domestically in its opening weekend. So this is the company after Return of the Jedi and Temple of Doom.
Really?
So you have Return of the Jedi, Temple of Doom, Rambo 2. And it's also the fourth sequel in history to gross over 300 million worldwide after Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Temple of Doom. So that's like some prolific company. You know?
And you get it, right? Because this is the quintessential crowd pleaser movie. You go, you experience it for 90 minutes, and then it's like Pringles. You can polish off another can.
Yeah, right. Pringles are good.
Yeah, it doesn't stay with you, but you have a great time watching it.
Excuse me. One could argue they do.
They forever, yeah.
Forever, yeah. Yeah.
By the way, Steven Burkhoff here as the bad guy. He had his run as 80s villains because the year prior to this he was the heel he was the heavy rather in Beverly Hills Cop.
Right. Yes, I knew we had just seen him.
Mm-hmm. And then the year before that he was in Octopussy.
I still haven't. I've got to continue to fill in my James Bond gaps.
Yeah, you kind of stalled out before you got to the Roger Moore era.
Yeah, but it's nice because then I can always start it back up. There's so many.
And I think
this is so menacing, isn't it? Sorry, but just real quick. Well, the way that he has this sort of like little grill situation, and it's like a tea kettle, and then he takes the knife and sticks it in the grill to heat it up, then takes the tea kettle off, and then continues moving. You're like, ooh, that's well staged and very sinister.
Well, I think he's the best kind of villain in that he's menacing based on how quietly he speaks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I always love that. When they don't have to elevate their octaves in order to give off the proper air of evil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we have Ko coming back, pretending to be a prostitute. Now, what I wish had happened is that they had kept the wisecracking John Travolta sidekick, and he was wearing this dress and had lipstick and a wig on.
Hey, I'm here to see you guys. Hey,
wouldn't that be a revelation if we read that original draft? We're like, well, I'll be damned, this was always in there.
Rambo falls in love with him. It's like a whole. It's an entirely different movie.
Yeah, but then he has to take the wig off, like, Rambo, it's me.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Put it back on.
It's a.
By the way, Stallone was 39 when he made this.
Dude, I know this is kind of messed up because we're watching him being tortured, but I was like, damn nation, look at that body.
I know. It's a marvel, right? Because he did Rocky 4 and this the same time.
Yeah.
So you imagine that's probably why he did them at the same time. It's like, well, might as well just get the most use out of my workouts,
Totally. He's probably got some crazy unsustainable diet and workout routine. But I mean, dude, that guy is like freaking like not an ounce of fat. Like every muscle is like puffed up here. Like that's gotta be so much work, right? On top of making a movie that's 12 hours minimum a day.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's that. I mean, I he's talked about this before, right? He knew the days were over for him and Arnold and all them when Michael Keaton could just wear rubber muscles.
Yeah, and that's kind of true. I mean, then you've got The Rock and you have Nicolas Cage as action hero and Con Air and that sort of thing, right?
Although, things kind of come back around because obviously there was a market for Dwayne Johnson.
That's true.
For a minute there, playing essentially an 80s action hero.
That's true, isn't it? And it's funny because I think he tried to have Schwarzenegger's career. There was even that moment, right, in the rundown where he literally passes Arnold Schwarzenegger, right. And Schwarzenegger says to him in the movie, like, have fun.
That's right.
But it hasn't quite worked the same. I think he thought he could do that thing, but he's realized he has to tweak it a bit just because we aren't in the same era as Schwarzenegger, and he's still kind of finding his way.
Well, but
some of
here's
it's
the
worked,
thing.
some of it hasn't.
I mean, I would say, look, I mean, Dwayne Johnson's still working. I think he'll be fine. I think to a large extent, even Schwarzenegger, his window was relatively brief. You know, he had maybe 10 years.
That's strange when you say that, but it's true. But his movies live on in such a way. I mean, Terminator, obviously, and
right.
You know, Predator. I think
that's a good point. Okay,
right, and like even up to True Lies, and you know, like.
Yeah.
I think I don't think this is a controversial statement, but I think he had the stronger films over Stallone.
That's true. Yes.
His have stood the test of time a little bit more. And, you know, I guess it's the people you align yourself with. I mean, James Cameron makes great movies.
When we look at Stallone's career, I think that he often went for sort of the easy payday, you know?
Stallone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing in the moment everyone was going to like show up and support and root for.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not the most, you know, nuanced or intelligent of stories per se, but it's what everyone wants right now.
Right. Well, and just using Rocky IV as an example, I mean, it sure feels like a pretty stark betrayal of everything that came before it.
Sure.
And I say this as a fan of the movie.
Yeah.
But it's a crowd pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
But it's dated in a way that the original Rocky is not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think the same thing applies here, where I think that this film, you have to view it with kind of, you know, with a tilted head a little bit, and sort of like acknowledging the cheese factor.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think you can watch First Blood today and still find it resonant and emotional.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. Excuse me.
But like when I look at Stallone, to me, there's nothing more reflective to me of his career choices than like Over the Top.
Yeah.
You know, which is attempting to do for arm wrestling what Rocky does for boxing, right?
Yeah, and you could also maybe think he's trying to make something younger. He realizes younger people like him, so maybe he can make something that they can actually watch.
Yeah. But ultimately what it came down to is that the Golden Globus guys were just showering him with money to the point where he couldn't say no.
Sure.
And I understand that instinct, but it's like, yeah, but you've made a shit movie forever.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So this right here, this is what you're talking about.
Oh, yes. So Rambo finally is like, all right, I'll communicate back to base. But
well,
it's
I love
not
it
about
because, you know, Murdoch is like, tell us where you are and we'll come get you.
Yes, exactly.
And he's like, no, I'm coming to get you.
Yes. Or it's not even like, you know, I'm being held captive and I'm just about to take them all down.
Yeah.
Or like making about the situation in the room. No, he's still really, really pissed at Murdoch.
I don't know, man. Call me crazy. I think he's right to be upset.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know if that's
this is a fist pump moment.
It really is.
What a snake. We're glad you're alive.
I
know. It's like I kind of want to see it.
We got the lightning.
Yes, the lightning. Gripping the microphone. Oh, I didn't even remember. It's just a close up on his lips. I'm coming to get you. So good. And dude, this is. I'm not, or I am a little ashamed to admit it, but when he threw the guy in the mattress and did the electricity, I was like, yeah.
You're like, do it more.
Exactly. Just because
down with communism.
Yeah, I mean, it does like tap into like your sort of base impulses a little bit, you know, like revenge and things like that.
No, I mean, they knew what they were selling, and And you have to give them props because the success that it enjoyed shows that their strategy worked.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
It is amusing that, the cartoon show, which started, the following year, I think it ran from 86 to 87, I think. They had characters who were somewhat like the characters in this movie.
Mm.
So like you had a master of disguises Asian woman who was clearly meant to be Kobao, but she's called Kat.
Yeah. Seem to have a crush on Rambo, I'm seeing here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And then because it's not the Russians, it's oh geez, what was it called? Savage, I think. Yeah. And so the main bad guy, who looks very much like the Russian general here, he's called General Warhawk. Which I've said this before. Well, when you have a name like that, I guess you're gonna be like a bad guy heading up a global right?
Right. With a name that's an acronym. Yeah.
You know who I feel bad for? I feel bad for Sam and Esther Warhawk. They did not raise their child
right.
to do that. But yeah, like all these characters who vaguely resemble the characters in this movie. It was basically trying to be G.I. Joe, right?
I love it too. So, there's one, this is just such 80s cartoon. It's like you also, his friend TD Touchdown Jackson, a former football player, like, and there's one who's a ninja, like, it's great. Yep. Someone who races cars.
Yep. I remember those. I remember by summer of 87, which is when I saw this movie, all the Rambo action figures had been remaindered. So they were on clearance,
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a whole bunch of them. I got there was Rambo and with the big bazooka that fires the missile, and he's got the knife and everything. And then there's Firepower Rambo, and he came with like a wind up thingamabob that
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
This is nuts,
dude. I had one of the Rambos. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, I watched that show. I remember, strangely enough, I kind of remember that show sort of encouraging my drawing. Like, I remember watching it and trying to draw it. And when they do explosions, I was kind of fascinated with the way they'd show that fiery smoke, and I tried to draw that. And
wow, I'm surprised you didn't keep up with that.
I did for a little while. I remember when I was a kid and people asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, I always said a cartoonist.
Wow.
I could draw, Bart Simpson and Garfield and all these things.
Look at that. I'm learning all. I had no idea. I'm learning all kinds of
really?
things. Yeah.
Yeah, that was such like a little part of my younger life.
Back before the weight of the world beat you down.
Yeah, maybe put down my pencils.
There was a day, and it turned out to be the last day you put down your pencils. You didn't know it at the time. Right? There's some kind of a Richard Dreyfuss narration. I feel like.
Richard Dreyfuss. Yeah.
I love how Murdoch is just shitting his pants now. Like he's just, it's like,
oh yeah.
It's like, bad news is coming. And you're just like,
I know he's pacing here, tugging at his collar, but they should have cut to him like packing his bag. And then Troutman, like, where do you think you're going? Like Lyle Landley or Stanley or whatever from the monorail episode. So yeah, here we get our sort of tender moment.
So this is we were talking about this before Mike, but before we got on Mike, the other day I happened to be listening to our Dark Knight Rises commentary track, and we made a specific reference to Lyle Landley and the monorail episode in that track.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I guess it's just that episode just lives in our brain rent free.
I mean, it's a brilliant episode, but he's also an amazing archetype. I know he's based on the Music Man, but still, that take. By the way, I'm fine watching movies from other eras. I love black and white. I love, even 70s movies that are a little washed out. I don't mind. But a filming technique I really can't stand that I see sometimes is that fuzzy,
the gauzy
lens. Yeah, gauzy, almost sort of like Barbara Walters interview lens. And it's weird. Occasionally it happens in this movie, and I would wish I could ask what the thinking was. Yeah,
well, because it's not consistent either. It just shows up at random shots, right? Yeah.
Well, and it just doesn't look good. Like it's just blurry. I don't get it. Like I wish I could ask someone, what is the thinking behind that lens? What are they trying to express? with that.
Yeah. Well, you got to make Stallone look all pretty.
Yeah, here we get it in this wide shot, but yeah, we don't get it in the close-ups. It almost feels like you do it in the opposite.
That is weird.
Yeah. But anyway, so yes, we get the tender moment with him and Co, and she's like,
so important lesson I learned at a young age: never kiss Rambo. I carry that with me to this day.
Or if you're a sidekick and you're like, you'll take me out of all this, right? Take me with you. Don't ever say that out loud.
Now, I should mention right before this, she goes, so we'll go through to Thailand. Yeah. Then go America. And I'm like, well, you just said 2 the previous second.
Right.
There's no consistency with the use of articles and prepositions. It doesn't make any sense, Brian.
That is hilarious. I didn't even notice that.
That's always, it cracks me up. Rambo, I go America. I'm like,
right.
And it's not her fault. I think she is good in this, and it's just not a well thought out type of dialogue. I would say, like you could. This was my thought watching it. Sorry, I know I'm harping on this. You could have had her speak like decent English and just tossed off a line like, "I learned English as a kid" or something. You know what I mean?
Either that, or I was thinking. And again, I like this actress. I mean, she does her thing well in this movie, but maybe you hire someone who
like dialect.
Actually is Vietnamese and speaks English, and be like, you tell me how this character would speak. This is what we want this person to express, and now you make it authentic, right? Which I think now
that's what would happen now. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I think about when we were, and this is, I mean, come on, this like this suiting up.
So I can hear every note of music from now until the end of the movie.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome. It's like raining on him, and he's like, I always knew Rambo with the headband, but I didn't realize it came from the dress of this woman he loved, and like, I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and just seeing him like tighten it, from behind and sheathing his knife, and it's great.
That's how you
and then
do
like
it.
the hands on the grave he's just made for her, and then they slowly move over to the bow, like time to get down to business.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Got a lot of murdering to do.
This really does like tap into something primal, doesn't
it? It tells you about what was top of mind at this moment in American history.
Yeah, not thinking about it much. Like just the immediate satisfaction.
Yeah. So essentially you've got the Cold War. So Russia is our present tense enemy, and Vietnam is the ghost that we're trying to exorcise. Let's knock them both out in one shot.
Right.
Like when this whole sequence, this is like, I mean, come on. Like as he's just methodically going through the entire Russian army, it is fun to watch.
It is really fun, and I like that he's sort of a ghost in this scene. Like we're seeing these shots, sort of rack focusy things, where we see a soldier, and then it rack focuses to like his hand moving foliage away, and then, or crossing frame up close, like just seeing that he is like a ninja through these woods, and these people don't stand a chance. They're never going to see him, and it is kind of fun to watch because we've been told what an amazing soldier he is, and now we're seeing him at work.
Right.
By the way, so I saw this fact. I don't know if this is true or not, because this just seems insane to me. But I read when this film was released in the Soviet Union, dialogue was changed so that the year that this story took place was 1943. The Soviets are Nazis, the Vietnamese are Japanese, and the POWs are World War II prisoners being held in the Philippines somewhere.
What?
I don't know, man. If that's true, that is bonkers.
That's kind of amazing. I kind of hope that's true.
I know. It's funny. Like, I mean, we got to get as many bucks as we can. Like, what do we do?
That's amazing. See, I love, he's like the Predator, it's just
yes. Like, this guy being like, ah! I almost wish we hadn't seen Rambo. Just like, whoa.
Yeah. In that shot right now.
Yeah. Pulled behind a rock or something.
Well, what's funny is that this is a version of what we see in the earlier film where he's in the woods
Yeah.
He sets all the traps and stuff, but this is like amped up. Okay, but now this is one of those iconic scenes where he's all in the mud.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, well, how long was he waiting?
Right. Right.
Is that uncomfortable? Like, it's so reliant on being at that exact moment.
Yeah, hoping that soldier walks back. Because, you think about it, that's going to take at least like 10 minutes to cake yourself in mud.
Right.
Secure yourself or seal yourself to that wall. And you have to hope a soldier crosses that specific path. Although I will say, it makes sense, right? It's just total mud slather we're looking at here. And I always think of that scene in the Hunger Games when that character PETA, because he's like a baker, so he's really good at decorating cakes. And there's that moment where Jennifer Lawrence is sitting by these rocks and she realizes he's disguised himself as the rocks, but it looks like something only a high-end Hollywood makeup artist could have done on his face. And I was like, no, like that's ridiculous. But this I'll buy. It's just the patience and the timing of it that makes you kind of laugh.
Yeah. So, we were talking about, the iconography of Rambo, and it's like this, right? The shirtless guy with the red headband.
Yep.
This was an icon that was known the world over.
Yeah.
And you can't undersell that because, during the 80s, I used to visit Pakistan and India a lot because I had relatives there, and Rambo was beloved over there.
What do you think it is about it? Is it just justice?
It's righteous vengeance. Yeah.
Righteous vengeance. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
The same way you describe, that play kit with the headband or whatever that we had kids in America, kids in Pakistan and India were doing that.
Interesting.
I guarantee you kids in Afghanistan were doing that. And that's at least part of the reason why Rambo 3 is set there,
Mm-hmm. That's pretty fascinating. By the way, this whole thing with the chicken or whatever, I kind of forgot. But again, I read a lot about this movie the other day. Hot Shots 2, we see him pick up the chicken, but of course he uses it differently. He uses it as an arrow with his bow. But I forgot. Yeah, Hot Shots 1 is a riff on Top Gun, and Hot Shots 2 is a riff on Rambo.
I was thinking about that, because Hot Shots 2, what was that, 93?
It feels about right.
Right. So it was 8 years after this movie.
Yeah.
Right. And like we said, Rambo 3 hadn't really made much of a mark, but okay, fine. It was 5 years since, and I wonder, even at the time when that movie came out, I was like, I don't know. It feels like the moment may have passed,
Yeah. I think, even as a little kid, well, not that little, but like 13 or something. But I do remember thinking it felt like an older reference, but it was so funny I didn't care. And it almost reinvigorated the reference for me or something.
That's true. Hot Shots 2 is very funny.
So good. Both of those movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even when you think about it, Hot Shots, the first one, was that 90?
Yeah, right? Something like that. Or 90, 91.
It's like 99. So you're looking at
91 probably because they reference Dances with Wolves.
You're right. Okay. So then you're actually, so maybe even, because when did Dances with Wolves, when that was 90, right?
That was 90, yeah, because that was the same year as Goodfellas.
So then I guess you're looking at the same length of time since Top Gun, Yeah,
that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. Hot Shots was 91. Yeah. Hot Shots 2 was 93.
Okay, I'm going to Google explosive arrows. They're pretty, even if they are an invention, it's a great idea.
Here I'm picturing Gizmo from Gremlins watching this scene in particular.
Okay, it says, while Rambo-style explosive arrows are a fictional element of the movie, some experiments have explored using high-powered pistol ammunition on impact. Anyway, so I guess this is an invention. But it feels just slightly enough possible.
I agree with that. Yeah,
and it's kind of
telling me that has just shattered my.
I'm so sorry
of this movie, this franchise, this everything. What are we even doing?
Oh, here we go with the waterfall thing. Sadly, but it's just cool watching him just shoot arrows. It's so funny. I always wanted to get better at bow and arrow. I even took lessons when I was in high school, and I went again a couple years ago, and I'm trying to think of where that came from. If it was like Prince of Thieves or like, it wasn't this because I hadn't seen it, but there was just something where I always wanted to use a bow and arrow. I feel like you don't even like see them anymore, even in media.
That's all you do, like Hawkeye, you know.
Probably that you just made like several points saying that. Yes, and I already forgot about Hawkeye.
So this right here, this
yeah.
cracks me up because dudes. Okay, so first of all, like how methodically Rambo like gets his arrow all set. Dude's shooting at him. He doesn't care. But guy explodes like he had no internal organs.
Yeah. Well, by the way, so like I said, I saw UHF first, and Weird Al shoots a guy with an arrow and he blows up, and I thought that was a joke, right? And so then I'm watching this for the first time, and I was like, "What? That really happens in this movie?" And it's funny because you're watching it and you're I mean, again, maybe the sickest part of you is like, whoa, cool, or something. And then you watch Saving Private Ryan and literally the same thing happens. And you're like, how can humanity be so debased?
Dude, I know, you know, for certain. I watched this movie as a kid and thought that was awesome when dude blows up and you see little pieces of meat going everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
and then, again, and then you watch Private Ryan and you're just like, why? How can we do this to one another?
We're not going to make it, are we? You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't know, we're complicated people, aren't we?
We really are. So I talked about this in our previous track, but one of my favorite parts of the Goldsmith musical identity for these films is the Rambo theme, right? Which, you know, and in the first film, it's very slow and kind of sad, you know. And then in this sequence right here, he just orchestrates it in a way where it's this heroic anthem, you know.
Right.
And I'm
kind
like,
of that dun 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 dun.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, what a durable piece of music.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that the cartoon show that we were discussing earlier, one of the smart things they did, or evil things, I guess, is they licensed the Goldsmith scores for both films.
Wow.
So that was the library music in that cartoon show.
That's incredible.
Right? So like, I think that's part of the reason that like that cartoon, like, because I remember watching the cartoon and it really, like, I became really familiar with the music. I think partly it's the reason I still have some affinity for it to this day, you know?
I like all this stuff. I mean, like obviously, you know, this helicopter stuff, the close-ups, they're probably on the ground or whatever. But like, I like that they keep cutting to these wide shots where we can see two men fighting through the door of that helicopter that's actually in the air over some sort of jungle. Like that's great. It looks cool and like, oh damn, all right. Well, I hope they don't fall out.
Yeah, I agree.
I love too that, you know, they set up at the beginning all his skills. It's like, well, he's good with this and hand-to-hand combat and helicopter, so don't worry about that. You know, now we got him like flying the helicopter. Oh, I also read somewhere, just reading stats about this film. So the stats at the beginning is Rambo has 59 confirmed kills during the Vietnam War, but he kills 74 people during the course of this movie. So in the span of 2 days, he's killed more people than his whole time in the war.
Well, see, if you know, if those pencil pushers would have just got out of the way.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, he might like accidentally kick off World War III just because they wouldn't rescue that one POW.
Like that when you think about it, that's the movie gives a very, very cynical reading of the government, the idea that even knowing that POWs are there, that they would not rescue them.
Right.
I mean, that defies logic, you know?
Totally. I hope.
The movie creates a world where, because only Rambo can do it.
And there's something invigorating about seeing a guy, or even if they were to like, it's too hard, there's too many risks versus even just leaving them there. Like seeing one guy like being like, well, then I'll do it myself. Like there is just something that gets your like blood pumping with a character like that. He'll do the
agree.
right thing against all odds and despite defying orders. Even like him screaming as he shoots the helicopter too, again with
can't
UHF.
help but think of UHF. Right?
Yeah. But so now I wonder also, had movies been this explosive before? I mean, certainly not in the 70s. They were a little more, car chases and that kind of thing. But like this, all these enormous explosion after explosion after explosion. I mean, is that another thing? Like, were people getting this for the first time and this was like really awesome to watch?
I think this kicked off the trend of ever escalating, third acts with explosions and whatnot, because it's hard for me to think of anything comparable before this,
I can't think of anything like this big.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you have, obviously there's explosions before, but like even earlier when the pirate boat crashes into the other boat and then the pirate boat blows up and I'm like, why did that blow up? Like it just, but it's like, that's what this movie is being like. Yeah. But if two things of machinery touch one another, they explode. So then every movie after this,
it's science.
Exactly. That's why I always appreciate it. I think about this a lot. Like in Terminator 2, when the truck is in the canal and it runs into that, little middle part. And I love that it shows the fuel leaking and like some sort of like cap swinging. And it's like, that's why this happens. It's not just because we want it.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. Oh, and by the way, why did that soldier not just pretend to be dead? Does he not want to live?
I was thinking about that. I was like, what's going to happen there, Chief? What do you think is going to,
I know.
Hey, Ivan, what's plan B,
Yeah, this guy just killed 40 people in front of your eyes and you have a minute here to play dead.
That's it. You're home free.
Yes. Yep. Now this is funny. I mean, I think of Cameron's, he may as well have been rescuing a 6-pack of beer comment. And it is funny because we're seeing these POWs in the helicopter and it is really, heartwarming seeing them smile, thinking about everything they've been through, and now they have a chance and they're free. But yeah, it would have been nice to like give them a little bit more.
Yeah, something, obviously we get it that they're emaciated and they've been prisoner for so long, but I think the idea is like, Rambo is the only one doing everything, and I'm like, I don't know, give them some burden to shoulder,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It also did make me wonder. One of them has a mustache, and I was like, "What is the shaving situation?" Where they're being
like in a
being
prison
held,
camp.
Like, are they allowed to shave? Like, what? Wouldn't they all have beards? I don't know.
That's
made me think a little too much.
Yeah, I mean, you might be overthinking.
But all this helicopter stuff is really exciting to watch.
No, it's effective.
Choreographed well,
and the effects are good. The music is doing its job.
Yeah. I mean, Top Gun hasn't come out yet, but I thought I remember reading somewhere that they just shot a ton of sort of B-roll of jets spinning around and doing stuff and tried to cut it into something that made some sort of sense. And I feel like you can feel that. Like it doesn't feel completely thought out sometimes, but this is like pretty good. Like the choreography of these two helicopters and the chase kind of and the shootout.
Top Gun was what, 86, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of, again, we're seeing sort of the quintessential 80s. There was a heavy strain of jingoism.
Totally. Totally. Well, those are some killer shots too of him seemingly piloting the helicopter. Maybe the real pilot's on the other side, but it looks good. Right. I mean, we can tell we're in the air. We're not against some sort of like rear projection. You got Sylvester Stallone there.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think that Siskel quote that you presented is so apt, right?
Mm-hmm.
It knows what it's doing, even if what it's doing isn't always good. Or it's good at what it does, even if what it does isn't always good.
Right? Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty apt.
It's interesting to look at the top 5 movies of the year this came out, because we got Back to the Future, Beverly Hills Cop was, even though it was released the previous year, it was still number 2 of 1985.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we had Rambo,
Mm-hmm.
and then Rocky 4,
Wow.
and then in the 5th spot, Cocoon.
Wow. A movie you can't even access in 2025.
Is it Cocoon or the second one?
Well, I guess I can't say that for sure, but I feel like one of them at least.
Yeah.
But for something that was, and speaking of another one that was very popular at the time, but now, people
Just
don't
completely
really,
out of sight, out of mind.
yeah. I love this just sort of fake out, like how fast it is. And it's just funny that it's not even like something, like it's just like a rocket launcher. It's like, oh, he just had that? Like,
I was thinking about the backblast from the rocket launcher. Like,
that's true. That's true.
Would they go deaf behind him? Like
He looks back and sees all the POWs like burned dead. And he's like, ooh.
like Looney Tunes cartoons, just
Oh, yes, that's better. Yeah.
their eyes are blinking, but
Yeah, all the smoke covered, like Daffy Duck with the.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I read that was a reshoot, by the way. Apparently in the original version, he just shot the helicopter down and audiences didn't think that was big enough.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
The whole
Well,
fake out with the rocket launcher was a reshoot.
Speaking of test screenings, I thought this was interesting. When Ko dies, originally you had a scene, or not a scene, but like right when she dies, he kind of looks to the heavens and goes, "No!" And people started laughing.
Oh, interesting.
And what's funny is when I watched it for this track, I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm glad they didn't do much more than what they did.
Yeah.
So it works the way it is, and it's funny that they actually did shoot another version,
right?
And here's what I've found. Generally speaking, when you have characters after somebody dies, they scream to the skies and say no. It's always funny.
Yeah, that's a hard one to pull off.
It's never not funny. That's my experience.
Yeah. I mean, even like Empire. Like Luke yelling no after he finds out Vader's his father. It's like right on that edge.
Right on that edge. Exactly.
I'm willing to go with it, but it's just like, you could also imagine it's scaled back a bit.
But Vader at the end of Revenge of the Sith, kind of funny.
Yeah. Yep. How is Padme? Is she all right?
No. Come on. It's pretty funny.
This is great. Like, yeah, they should like see all the soldiers running out, and then like Murdoch sitting at his desk, like, uh-oh. This is where he should start packing his suitcase.
Yeah.
He's like, what are the odds one man will return after all that?
No way, I tell you. Yeah. Not a chance.
Yeah. It's like Mr. Burns, 9 misfortunes.
One misfortune, maybe.
Yeah.
There's an outside chance.
I'd like to see that. And seriously, why not? Why not just see him like his desk, like his chair spinning empty, like we know he just got up and ran away like a Looney Tunes character. And then like, Rambo lands the helicopter. Then we cut and we see him stuffing clothes into a suitcase, and then back to Rambo. This is great. The POWs like spilling out, and Rambo doesn't even like help him out. He just grabs his gun. And
I was like, there's a guy that just got shot. Maybe you should at least see how he is, because the guy.
He's like, yeah, he's not done. His mission's still active. He's like storming toward the base.
You know what I love though is he looks to Troutman like almost like to get permission.
Yes. I was thinking a lot about Troutman and what he's doing here. In my mind, I almost wanted to see him stand there and then like step aside, but I was like, no, that doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah,
I like what he does here. It's sort of like he allows it, but he's not after you.
It's like plausible deniability.
Exactly. By the way, so this is another thing I meant to bring up earlier, but it feels very 80s, where you have this soldier who can do things with his bare hands, but you bring him into a room and you show him like a computer that takes up the entire room. And it's like, this is how we do things now. Like McClane too. He's averse to technology, right? And you show him all these technological things, and he doesn't need them.
He doesn't need them.
Right? Isn't that like kind of like it feels like something from like 80s stories?
Yeah, well, definitely with McClane too. Oh, he's the fourth movie, like, oh, he's an analog guy in a digital world or whatever,
Yes.
Although, I mean, to be fair, in the first film, Rambo has that monologue at the end. He says, over there, I was in charge of $1 million equipment. So it's like he's not opposed to the idea, I presume, of machinery and thing,
Yeah. And I guess in this story, him destroying the machinery is more like that machinery was supposed to facilitate a mission that did not happen. So it's like, well, screw your machinery. It was all worthless anyway. This is great. There's something so awesome. Sorry, just so awesome about a character where you think they're going to shoot him or stab him or whatever, and you kind of want it, but then they don't, and they shoot to the side.
But what you needed Rambo to be like, "You're not worth it," and then he turns around, and then Murdoch pulls out a gun, and then Rambo shoots him.
That's so yeah.
That's what we needed.
That's right.
Or he like throws the knife through his throat,
Right. And then the knife goes through the throat and connects with one of the computers, and all the computers blow up while he's attached to them. That's what
exactly,
Yeah.
But that shot earlier where he's walking, he walks in and he's shooting with ropes of machine gun shells are being ejaculated from his gun. I mean, it's a lot.
I remember going to Vegas where I could shoot like an automatic weapon. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool. It was fun to try it. And they were like, don't hold down the trigger or this will be a very quick experience. So they're like, do it in bursts. And I did. And I was like, brr, brr, brr. And the next thing you know,
Rambo.
Yeah, it goes
Rambo
so
doesn't
quickly.
Need bursts.
No.
He does it all at once. He drills down.
But that's the thing. That's when I play video games, I want them to work like the movies where it's like unlimited ammo. So like it's almost frustrating when they make them realistic and it's like, oh, I'm out of ammo. What am I supposed to do?
Now what?
Yeah. I thought these things went forever.
So this monologue right here, in direct contrast to what I find a remarkably effective monologue at the end of the first film, I find Stallone's delivery here comical.
Yeah, I mean, I like what he's saying.
What he's saying is fine.
Yeah, maybe it just feels a little out of place somehow, tonally.
Like, I think I would assume that Stallone's thinking was, he's so buttoned down throughout the movie that this is him just sort of letting loose, and we see that in the first film where he just, erupts in tears. And I think in the interim, Stallone had the revelation that real Rambos don't cry.
Well, I did remember reading some quote where he said, like, look, I realize that speech may make people's eyeballs roll into the back of their heads. Mm-hmm. However, I spoke with a lot of veterans, and that was the sentiment I heard over and over. So
again, the sentiment is fine. I just like
the delivery.
If you had a real director for the performance part, I think they would have guided you towards a place where you can deliver it in a way that's more earnest.
Yeah, maybe even just have it a little, with a choked throat, a little bit like, like just spitting it out from the heart. But this feels, like he may as well be behind a podium and with a flag behind him and like pounding his fist.
Exactly. It's a little much. Yeah. This song. Oh, and by going right into Peace in Our Life, I'm like,
oh, that's in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat discordant given the movie we just watched, which is
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
So this is Frank Stallone singing this song. I believe it won a Razzie that year, if I'm not mistaken.
Did it really? I was going to make a joke, and I totally forgot about it, where I was like, oh, I didn't realize this song was actually from a movie. I know it on its own, just a song. It happens to be from Rambo. Oh, wow.
It's on your Spotify constantly.
Yeah.
Jerry Goldsmith wrote a piece of music that would have gone over these credits, and that's on they put out an expanded soundtrack album a couple of years ago, and I listened to that just before getting on, and I'm like, well, God damn it, this.
Yeah, what we could have had.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad it exists so we can listen to it, but geez, this monstrosity of a song, unfortunately,
Yeah, I mean, did Frank Stallone put out albums, or did he just kind of make these songs for his brother's films? Like, I don't.
That is a good question.
I don't know much about him at all, and I know that Norm Macdonald joked about him a lot, but like,
I know that's what I was thinking of too.
That's kind of all I know him from, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I would assume probably, right? He must have put out some albums.
Yeah. Well, good looking out. I can appreciate that. Looking out for your brother.
So Rambo, First Blood Part 2.
We sort of said it at the beginning, but I really feel like that Siskel quote sums this up absolutely perfectly. Like if you were to show it to someone, you couldn't do it with a straight face. It's like, look, this is what, know what we're getting into here. But like, as silly as it is, and maybe even slightly irresponsible, like it's totally fun. It's totally fun. And I like it. Like I was saying too, I mean, there was a lot of these explosive, just plow your way through bad guys movies in the 80s, but I do feel like this one is a well done version of that.
I agree.
A well done silly movie.
I agree.
Movie.
And I think a less well done version ended up hitting theaters 3 years later.
Yeah, I need to revisit that because I've seen it once and don't remember a ton.
Well, hey, maybe in a couple of years we can tag back in and talk through that one.
Sure.
But that wraps up our thoughts on Rambo First Blood Part 2. But hey, let us know what you think of what we had to say. You can email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast, and message us there. We also have a Patreon page, right?
Yes, we do. Head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast. Hit subscribe, and for only $5 a month, you'll find every commentary we've ever done and every episode moving forward, absolutely ad-free, along with occasional extras from time to time. Free feed will always be available, but this is our way of providing what we believe is the most satisfying way to enjoy the show. Plus, your subscription goes a long way in helping to support us and helping to sustain producing the show. So if you're interested and able, please head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast and subscribe. We'd be very grateful.
There you go. And if you like what we're doing, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, leave a star rating. Every little bit helps. And if you're looking for me online, you can find me on social media at Zacky's Corner. That's ZAKIS Corner. Brian, you got anything you want to hype up?
Yeah, new episodes of Young Jedi Adventures just dropped about a week and a half ago. So you can check those out. Those are some really fun episodes, and I'm really proud of some of the ones I did, and everyone else was just on fire with what they were doing. So you can check those out on Disney+.
There we go. With that, on behalf of my partner Brian Hall, my name is Zachy Hassan. This has been our movie film commentary track for Rambo First Blood Part 2. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, folks.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo! Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.